little demo I've got for you today is the palette sign creative kit, how to use milk paint in painting and how to kind of create your own saying and own lettering without using a stencil. I love being able to have a variety of options and not just one way that has been done over and over again. So you get to add your own creativity and flair and uniqueness to this one. You're going to need your wooden palette sign. This one I've already done my first coat on it. And you're going to need your milk paint. It comes in powder form. You're also going to need your little beeswax puck. You're going to need a jar for mixing. I prefer glass. I think it works great, and it kind of helps to be able to save any extra paint you have as well. You're going to need a 1/4 cup of warm water, and you're going to need a mixing spoon or fork or whisk or whatever you use kind of to mix up some paints that you're not going to want to put back in your kitchen drawer. All right, so you're going to take your milk paint in your little sample pack here. It is equivalent to about a 1/4 cup, so we're going to mix in our 1/4 cup of water, and warm water I find mixes a little bit better. There we go. And start stirring it up. Milk paint is an environmentally friendly product. It has all like natural pigments, clay, lime, and your milk casein as ingredients. It has 0 VOCs. It's something that I have really enjoyed creating projects in, from things I've built to things I've refinished for my home. And it's kind of kid and pet friendly, and that was much needed in my house. So this, you're going to want to give a stir for a few minutes. You want to make sure all of that pigment is dissolved and evenly dispersed. The nature of milk paint makes it a little different than your normal acrylic and latex. It tends to settle, so it will settle when it's just kind of sitting. All of the clay and the pigment, it will kind of go to the bottom of your container. So you want to make sure that as you're painting, you continue to give it a stir. There we go. I've got that mixed in. I tend to prefer to paint my milk paint more with a thinner consistency, more like a stain. So to create that, you just want to add 3 parts water to 1 part milk paint. So you would need 3/4 cups of warm water and 1/4 cup of your milk paint powder. There, that's all stirred in. So you're going to also want to make sure that you let your pigment dissolve fully. Otherwise, as you're painting through your project, you're going to find that the color might change a little bit as you continue on and later on into the process. It takes 5 to 10 minutes for the pigment to dissolve, kind of depending on the color. So I'm going to let this sit for about 5 minutes now, and I'm going to come back and show you how to kind of prep and get started on your painting. My milk paint is all ready, and after a couple more stirs, I feel that it's still kind of thick for my liking. It'll be a really nice, solid, kind of opaque paint to work with at this consistency, but I'm going to take and add about another tablespoon of water into it and just give it a stir. And that's a little bit better. It's more like a whole milk right now than a heavy cream. So that's a little bit better. Okay, so now if you've got your two colors mixed up, this is a great opportunity to layer them. I've got a bright green on the bottom that I've already mixed up and painted on, and I prefer the two colors. You can also use just your raw wood as your base. You can also, if you have a light and a dark color, you can put your dark down first or your light down first. The color that you put on last for the top, that's going to be your main color that you're going to see most of. Next thing you're going to want to do is take your mini beeswax puck and just rub it around the edges of your palette sign. If you've got your second color, if you've got your first color on there, make sure it's completely dry before you put your second color or your beeswax puck on it. And the beeswax puck, just the wax being on there, it acts like a resist, so it protects that color underneath and allows it to be able to show through after you put your second color on and do a light sanding. If you didn't have the beeswax puck and you just did a light sand, you'd go right down to the wood. There's nothing protecting or stopping your sanding from going all the way through. So just right around the edges. You can do the whole board if you like. I'm just doing a few little bit of edges here. You don't have to press hard. Beeswax has a really low melting point, so it's on there right as soon as you rub it just that little bit. All right, so that's on there. My paint, I'm going to give it an extra stir, and we're ready to paint our color. Any household painting brush will do. I often have used even my acrylic brushes. I just find that the milk paint kind of tends to hold into the bristles a little bit more than the acrylic paint. So like a normal household painting brush, 2 inches, 3 inches works great. As long as I can get it into my jar to pick up the paint, it works. Okay, I'm just going to give that another stir. Keep my mixer in there. And I'm just going to paint away. And I can see a little bit of the various pigments kind of coming through. So I'm just going to give them a little bit of an extra brush. And I've got that second color on the bottom, so if I don't do a solid coverage of my top color, I'm okay with that. I actually like that little bit of dry brushing so it doesn't cover all the way. I'm going to do my edges. And I normally don't paint the back of the signs just because if you want to hang them up, I don't want that paint rubbing on the wall at all. Fuzz is there. Don't really want those on my sign. My colors are pretty similar. It's just going to be like a subtle contrast between them. Go. Now, depending on the temperature in your room or in your house, the humidity as well, it will affect the drying time a little bit, but normally in about 20 minutes or less, your sign will be ready to dry and you're going to be ready to put your saying or your image on it. So while we're waiting for this to dry, you can kind of plan your saying. You can do a little search for it on Google and print it off. So I have mine printed off, just as much of the 8x10 paper that I could fill with it, and it says my happy place. So this is going to hang in my office here at the studio. It definitely is a place that I love to be, even if it's work. I love it. And I'll have that ready. I'm going to grab a piece of chalk, or you can have a pencil handy if you don't have chalk. If you have graphite paper kicking around, that would work great, or some sort of tracing paper. But regular old chalk, chalkboard chalk, sidewalk chalk, it will both work. And otherwise, a pencil works great too, just to be able to get something on the back so you can transfer your design, your image. So I don't have a chalk right handy, but I do have a pencil. So on the back of my image, lettering, even if it was a drawing, it would work the same way too. You'd be able to use this technique and transfer it. Okay, that looks good. I've got the back of my lettering all colored in, and want to make sure that I've got pencil or chalk over the entire back of where my letters are, high, low, all of that. My sign is dry, and then I'm going to center this where I would like it. Okay, that looks good. And I'm just going to hold it in place, and I'm going to trace around all of my letters. The fancier the letters, a little bit trickier it could be. Also, any like thin, thick parts, all of that. It takes a little bit more time, but it does. It turns out really awesome in the end. So I'm going to just quick do a trace of the outside of all my lettering here. Okay, there we go. So I have it all traced on, and I'm going to next paint in my letters. You can use one of your milk paint colors. You can also use acrylic or latex paint. I find I like acrylic the best. It's a little bit thicker and smoother, but all of them, any paint that you have will work in that aspect, either the milk paint or acrylic or latex. I'm going to use a smaller round brush, so I will return and you'll get to see all of that happen. I've got a couple different brushes here ready to go. A small round brush and a medium round brush, so size 2 and size 4. Something that's going to be fine enough just to get into your letters, whatever size lines and shapes you have for your letters. I have some just regular craft paint, acrylic paint, latex paint, or your milk paint will work for this. And I have just a container for some water to rinse my brush and a little lid to put my paint on. So now that all of my painting is done, I'm just going to do a little bit of distressing. And you can actually even distress before you put your lettering on if you like, but I like my lettering just a little bit distressed, and I can always paint in and touch up some spots once I finished. But I mainly just do a light sand with a fine grit sandpaper. You can always go more coarse if you need to, but anywhere from like a 60 to an 80, even 100 or 120 would be really good to start with. Right, there we go, and I'm just gonna give it a quick wipe here. Just a dry cloth. And there we go. That's it. That's your palette sign. Way to go, you guys.